Hey everyone, and welcome to another video. And today we're going to be talking about survival horror games. You guys requested this, so I'm trying to give you a good list of games that you guys might not have heard of. I feel like this list is pretty obscure, and most of the survival horror games I talk about is usually like a third person. Not too many first person games here. There is a couple I think I'm adding to the list, but just want to let you know that there's going to be mostly third person and even isometric type games here. But anyways, guys, we got a lot to talk about, so we got to get right into it. Here is Ghost Hunter. Now, I don't hear a lot of people talk about this game at all, and thankfully now this game is, I believe it's being released for the PS5 via the Plus service, so make sure you guys look into that. But this is a survival horror game. We play as a police officer named Lazarus Jones. They go to this abandoned school to investigate a missing person, and his partner ends up getting kidnapped, and you fall into these shenanigans where you have to go rescue her, and you're going through these different time periods trying to recapture these ghosts that got loosed, and to help out other ghosts as well, like the ones that are actually good. So a very cool game here, and it's kind of crazy that Sony actually made this game, but they didn't bring it to America. Actually, Namco did. So thank you, Namco, for bringing this gem to America, because I would have never played it. But anyways, guys, if you haven't played Ghost Hunter, now's your chance to play it, especially on the PlayStation Network. Yeah, I just looked it up, guys. It's on the PSN for the good price of $10. Here's Heaven Dust Collection, which includes Heaven Dust and the sequel, Heaven Dust Part 2. Now, I haven't really got to the sequel yet because obviously I'm still playing through the first game, but this is an isometric survival horror game, and it will really remind you of the first Resident Evil game. It has that feel to it. You're trying to look around every corner to see what's waiting for you. There's traps, there's puzzles. It's all kind of awesomeness, and I'm really having a good time with this one. Now, a little bit about the story. Scientists have found a virus in people's blood that will lead to immortality, and they call it Heaven's Dust. And I don't know why immortality is like oh, I don't know. But anyways, they find out that it's not all what it seems, and that's where the game comes in, because people that get the sample pretty much are turning into zombies and everything like that. And you pretty much wake up in this laboratory, or this mansion laboratory. You're trying to figure out what's going on, and it's very interesting. And it plays just like a survival horror game. You have to be like very protective of your ammunition, and just don't overall fight every enemy. It's just what a true survival horror game is. Here is Monstrum. Now, this is a first-person horror game, and you start the game on a cargo ship, and it's always random where you're at, and there's a monster stalking you. Now, you never know what the monster is until you see it, or even hear it. There are cameras on the ship to kind of alert the monster where you're at, so you want to avoid the cameras, but it could actually be pretty terrifying sometimes. I personally wasn't too scared with this game, but the more you linger around, the more trippy this game gets, because the enemy is following you, and they are stalking you, and they are hiding from you. So it can be pretty crazy. Now, the game's not perfect. It does have some screen tearing and glitches that kind of might take away from the experience, but that only happens sometimes, at least when I play. I think people will get a good experience out of this game if they want to, but at the same time, more hardcore players might want to look somewhere else. I guess what I'm trying to say is that this game is no Alien Isolation, so just get that out of your heads if you're thinking it's just like that. I mean, it tries to be something similar, but the execution is kind of off. Here's Guilt. Now, this game actually, I believe, came out quite a few years ago. Like, I think, believing back in 2019-20, but it was a Stadia exclusive, if you guys remember that system. Thank goodness the developers decided to expand the game, because I don't think a lot of people would know about it if it just stayed on the Stadia. And, of course, now it has a physical release. Now, you play as a young girl named Sally who's looking for her missing cousin, Emily. Now, Emily, I believe, has been missing for a month when the game starts. And pretty much the game starts with you putting up posters, letting everybody know that she's missing. But unfortunately, during the search, your character gets bullied by neighborhood kids, ends up getting lost. And you're trying to find your way back home. When you go to the train station that you find, you see this weird conductor. And the conductor says, hey, you got to buy this ticket to go home. You buy the ticket. And all of a sudden, you go to this jacked up looking city that's just... It's like a mirror image of, I believe, where Sally goes to school at, but it's just pretty twisted, and I found the game to be pretty eerie as I played through it. It really gave me an unnerving feeling about what was around the corner, because you're playing as a child in this game. She's only 11 years old, and she's going through a school like at nighttime in other parts of the city. And it's just like, it just looks very eerie, and the monsters in this game are just like terrifying looking. You know, I just feel bad for her. But mostly in the beginning of the game, you'll be kind of like playing stealth, like trying to hide from your enemies until you figure out how to take them out, or if you need to take them out. Some enemies you could just walk past. Some enemies are patrolling, so you have to be very careful. And some enemies are just like, they pretty much stalk you, so you have to be quiet when you can and run if you have to. Now, I wanted to mention also that I have played this game on live streams, and those videos are up, so if you want to check those videos out and see how it is, you know, definitely give those a watch. I might actually start doing more live streams. But anyways, going back into the game, I like how it gives you that sense of what's around the corner. It just feels like, I know I say this term a lot, but it just feels unnerving, just like a survival horror game should be. Oh, also, I did want to mention that the game has multiple endings, so depending on how you play the game, you'll get a different ending. There's a good ending, a bad ending, and a selfish ending, I would say. So, anyways, guys, definitely check out Guilt. Let me know what you think about it.
Hey, Sally! You still looking for your cousin?
What'd you do to her?
Sally, we know you're here.
You can't hide from us.
There's still a chance for you to make things right, Sally. You must find Emily. She is the key to ending this nightmare.
This is Tormented Souls for the PlayStation 4. I've been waiting to play this game forever, and now it's finally here. So just to describe this game a little bit, if you're familiar with survival horror games, and these are the old school survival horror games like Dino Crisis, Resident Evil, hell, even Chaos Break, but I don't think anybody knows about Chaos Break. You will know what to expect here, and it is done really, really well. So with the old school survival horror games, they really don't give you too much story in the beginning. You know, they give you very minimal, and they throw you into a crazy situation. And this game does the same thing. You end up going to this mansion hospital place, and you get knocked out, and next thing you know, you wake up in a tub. And when you wake up, you pretty much have some parts missing. I'm not going to tell you guys which, but most of you guys probably already know anyways. But definitely this game pulls no punches. It has a very clever puzzles so far. I haven't got that far in the game yet, but the puzzles so far, pretty clever, very unique. If you guys think this game is too dark, no, that's just the way the game is in the beginning, because the electricity is not running in certain areas. So you have to use your lighter And you have to be very careful in this game because if there's dark areas you try to walk into, you will get killed immediately. So be very careful. Stay in the light. Try to stay safe. And if something's chasing you, you gotta go old school Resident Evil style. Make sure you get it a good camera angle and start blasting away.
Trabajamos audinos aradia ipse.
Seven Mansions Ghastly Smiles is a survival horror game that actually started on the Sega Saturn and was pretty much ported to the Dreamcast. You kind of tell with the way the graphics are. It was going to get a Western release, but we know what happened with the Dreamcast on the West, so that never happened. So you play the game as two college students looking for their professor on this island, and the action starts pretty much immediately. You get inside this laboratory, and you get locked in, and the monsters start stalking you. It's pretty crazy. It kind of reminds me a little bit of Carrier for the Dreamcast. Like, if you could hear it, you already did. Remember that little tagline they used to have? The game's kind of like that. If you hear the monster, it's usually very close to you. So, but a lot of the monsters in this game so far that I've seen, they're not really too threatening. You have these melee attacks you can kind of lock them up in pretty much. So they aren't too bad once you like learn how to do that. But I haven't got that far yet, so I can't tell you how it gets later in the game, but I'm having a good time so far. It does give you that sense of dread that you have when you feel like you're alone and like playing survival horror games, so that's a good thing. But hopefully things will stay or get better later on as I get farther through the game. But hopefully you guys like what you're seeing here. This one is available as well. Here's Signalis. So a lot of people were hitting me up saying, Reggie, you got to play this game. It is amazing. A true survival horror gem. And, I just didn't get time to play it when I was like told about it. But after finally playing this game now, I was blown away. I mean, this really feels like I'm playing an old school PS1 game. Like, this game is like one of those survival horror games where you truly don't know what to expect. I've been playing survival horror games for years, and I kind of could piece stuff together. But this game, the whole time I was playing it, I didn't know what the hell was going on. I know all I knew was I'm trying to survive. Now, I can't go too much into the story, but you play as an android named Elser. I gotta go back and look at it. But anyways, and this android made a promise to a human, and you're trying to find out what happened to this base. Like, a lot of people, well, everybody's pretty much dead. You're trying to find out what's going on. The game has some clever puzzles, but I didn't like that the game started off with a puzzle, kind of. I was like, man, I wanted to kind of get it to flow a little bit before a puzzle happens, but usually the puzzles are pretty easy if you sit there and think for a second. It's just the timing of it for me. It's just like I get impatient. I want to go, go, go. But I want to say this game did a lot of things well for I want to say like old school style game for modern consoles, I would say. The game had a good flow besides some of the puzzles. Some of the puzzles in the later game get pretty clever. I'll just let you guys know right now, so be ready. What I do want to make sure I let everybody know is that the enemies in this game are pretty fast and tough to deal with, so you probably want to get used to like how your character moves around and try to avoid most enemies, because ammo in the game, though it's not dropped a lot and everything, so you want to kind of conserve it as much as you can. Well, I shouldn't say that, just know when to pick your battles pretty much. If you can avoid an enemy, do it. If not, take them out. Now, the environments in the game look good, but sometimes like items that you interact with, tend to bleed in with the environment. Like you think you need to pick up something, and it ends up being nothing but just part of the environment. So I wish the game would kind of like show items easier that you could like interact with instead of like, you know, just, I don't know. I think that's an issue I ran into. That's thinking I could pick up certain items. But anyways, this game does an excellent job of bringing survival horror to modern consoles with a old school look. So definitely put this one on your radar. If you're looking for a physical copy of the game, I would say go to Amazon. That's where I got mine. And if you already played a good portion of the game, let me know what you think about it in the comments. Here's Dread Out Part 2. Now, the original game came out on Steam a few years back, and it's unfortunate that that did not get a physical release, but at least we got one of the games, and this is actually the better game. So Dread Out is pretty much a survival horror game where you're dealing with what I would say pretty much urban legends. So the game kind of throws a lot at you. If you play games like Fatal Frame, you'll kind of know what you're getting into here. You actually attack enemies with your camera phone and other various objects. Now, this is one survival horror game that gets straight to the point. You know, first of all, it starts you off at a school at night, and it looks terrifying. Now, while you're at the school, it seems like it's pretty empty, but this is the best time to kind of get used to the controls in the game. Now, you play as Linda, the protagonist from the first game, and pretty much this game starts where the last game left off. Now, at nighttime is where you have to really fight enemies, and during the daytime, you get to walk around the city, go to dorms in the village and all that stuff, do all your traveling and look around. But when it's night, that's when it's time to fight. And this game just like, it throws all kind of weirdness at you, and that's one of the things I really like about it. The urban legend hook is really going to pull a lot of people in because like all the different types of monsters you'll see and all kind of the weirdness will really throw some people through a loop. Now there's a part early in the game where you get a live stream going on your phone, and it's basically this girl blaming you for what's going on all these people's deaths, and I was like, what the heck is this? And pretty much this girl was pretty much saying it's on site. So when I left the school, I wasn't expecting this, but she was waiting for me at the front door, and pretty much a boss fight started, so I had to take her out. I got past it the first time thanks to like practicing how to move in the game, and using the phone against her was pretty easy, but how she appeared in the game was kind of like a foreshadowing of what things to come pretty much. So you're going to always have to keep your head on the swivel in this game because you never know what it's going to throw at you, and I think a lot of survival horror fans will like that. So keep this one on your radar. And also, they have a movie out for it. I did not even know this, but there's a movie on Dread Out, so definitely check that. Well, let me know if you guys have seen it, if it's any good, so you can save me some time from watching it if it's bad. But anyways, this game is good. Definitely check it out. White Day at Labyrinth Named School is a pretty awesome survival horror game. But just going a little bit into this game, I had this game on PS4 for a few years now. I wanted to get the Switch version because I like having it as a portable survival horror game, and it comes with all the DLC, which is really cool. But the premise of this game is a student wants to give a love letter to a girl he likes, and he decides to go to the school at night to put it in her locker. Now, I'm sure most of you know this, but a school is one of the scariest looking places at night. I mean, seriously, if you're junior high and to high school, those buildings, the way the lighting is at night, there's barely any. And not only that, is that you're being stalked by the janitor. The janitor catches you, man, you're going to get the business. He will beat you to death, and he does not get tired of chasing you, so try to stay out of his sights. But the game has the atmosphere down as being terrifying, I would say. So definitely a survival horror game I think a lot of people will want to try out. Just to let you guys know, it is in first person, so I don't know how you feel about that, but I feel like it's one of the ones that's well done in first person. You know, a lot of the new survival horror games in first person are just kind of like jump scares and stupid stuff like that, but this one's actually really feels like an old school survival horror game.
Did I scare you? I guess you don't like ghost stories, huh?
Oh, the doors are probably all locked by now. They lock all the doors after 10, except for the lecture hall lobby, that is. If we want to leave, we have to go to the lecture hall. You know the new building, lecture hall, and here are all connected, right?
All right, The Blair Witch. I got this when it first came out as a physical. I think I picked it up at GameStop. And this is when it was like hard to find or whatnot. So this is a horror game where you're searching for a lost child in the woods. Now, you have your trusty dog with you. And during the daytime, everything's pretty simple or whatnot. But when it becomes night, that's when this game becomes pretty scary. And it's pretty unnerving, I would say. All I have to tell you guys is make sure you treat the dog well so he acts well during this, because he's your main focus on how you get through this game, or pretty much how you navigate through the game. And actually in this game, you actually run into the Blair Witch, which is pretty terrifying. The dog, depending on the dog's actions, you'll know what's going on. If he becomes like standoffish, and obviously if he starts growling, danger is lurking around the corner. You go to all kind of different environments while you're in the woods. You find a bunker, which is pretty crazy, and just like the game is just tripped out. I don't want to tell you too much after that. I want you guys to kind of experience this for yourself if you want. The game is, it is buggy at some points, I would say, but it's still playable, I would say. But yeah, just something to be aware of too. It's not perfect. This game was released, I think, at the price point of around $30 when it first came out. So, not a AAA title or anything like that. But I can guarantee that this game is better than watching the Blair Witch Part 2 movie.
What the hell?
Here's the Remothered series. So we're going to start off with Remothered Tormented Fathers. And in this game, you play as Rosemary Reed. She is searching for these missing teens, and she decides to visit a man named Dr. Felton on the whereabouts of his daughter. Now, the conversation starts off pretty simple at first, but when Rosemary starts pushing, it gets very weird, and you get kicked out of the house. You try to sneak back in, and when you sneak back in the house, you find out you're locked in pretty much. So, and Dr. Felton, he knows you're there, and he's not very happy, and he's pretty much chasing you around. I'll just leave it as a surprise so you can see what he's wearing. But anyways, he is on a level of a stalking to where, if you guys remember the Tyrant from Resident Evil 2 remake, how he would kind of follow you around. Dr. Felton is a bit more worse than that, because he could hear crazy footsteps. So you have to really kind of tiptoe your way around certain parts of the mansion. And walking on carpet, softens the sounds, but still you got to be careful from running unless you absolutely have to run, and that's when he's chasing you. One of the craziest moments I remember from this game, I was actually playing a live stream years ago, and I was in this long corridor, and it's playing that eerie music where the enemy's around, but you have to go through that corridor. The enemy's on the other side, but there's no way to kind of get past them. There's an area where you can kind of get to and kind of maneuver around him, but if you're stuck in that corridor, he's coming through it. It's just almost like a wrap. It was pretty trippy. Now, the game's sequel, Remothered Broken Porcelain, had a bit of a rough start, and I actually did a review on it. I was really disappointed with all the glitches, and it was just the state that they put the game out in. It was just horrible. But now that the game's been patched and fixed properly, so I think a lot of people will enjoy it. This game ties up all loose ends that may have been left from the first game, and the environment you're in a hotel on this one, so out in the middle of nowhere, so it's pretty trippy, and you find all kind of I want to say hidden areas in this game that you did normal hotels wouldn't have. But you're being stalked as usual by multiple targets, and I won't spoil who they are, but it's definitely a good survival horror game that I feel like these games are kind of I want to say spiritual successors to Clock Tower. If Clock Tower was in 3D, they would play like these games. Definitely check out the Remothered series for this Halloween. I think you guys will enjoy it. The Long Reach. So if you like pixelated 2D games, this game will be right up your alley. Now, it's kind of hard to explain the story with this game, but I'll do my best. So basically, you're in a town that had some failed experiments going on, and basically what happened was people's nightmares are manifesting into reality. So you're seeing all kind of crazy stuff happen that's impossible right in front of you. And even the beginning of the game is insane. You go in the grocery store, something's going on in the back. You get knocked out cold by one of the assailants, and while you're recovering, the guy picks up an axe and he goes to town. It's pretty crazy. Stuff like that. You're trying to figure out what's going on, And I'm going to say it's kind of difficult unless you kind of pay attention to everything. You know, you choose certain dialogue. But the game is trippy because it has that unknown factor. You never know what's going to happen next. You know, open up a door, something just runs right at you and grabs you. We're talking about scares like that, so you have to be ready for everything. Hopefully, most of you have noticed that this game pretty much takes inspiration from Lone Survivor, if you guys remember that game. That was a creepy, psychological survival horror game that just, man, needs more love. But going back into this one of the more joyful things about this game is the shock value of the story when you do find out like kind of what's going on. Also, the game does has its fair share of puzzles, not anything too crazy, just to kind of mix up the gameplay a little bit. But definitely, I would say keep this one on your list if you're looking for a good survival horror game. Good old Michigan Report from Hell. This game is a first-person survival horror game, as you can see, where you play as a cameraman, and you actually assist reporters in the game, trying to find out the scoop of what's going on. One of the best ways I like to sum this game up is to kind of compare it. If you guys have seen that movie, The Fog, well, if The Fog, the movie, was a video game, this would probably be somewhat close to what it would be. Now, you're investigating the mystery of the fog and what's going on with it, but what it really does is it's really infecting people and turning them into horrible monsters. So if you encounter somebody who's been in the fog too long, you might want to stay away from them, as they might have some crazy looking effects from it.
Oh my god!
What are you doing? Run! Get away from there!
What? Just keep quiet.
Behind you! There's a...
So even though you're trying to find out the scoop of what's going on, you're trying to protect the reporters as well, but sometimes it doesn't turn out well, and I just want to let people know not to get attached to them, because they probably will die on your first playthrough, which is okay. I mean, but still, you know, just try to do your best, because it's funny with this game is they could get killed by like a rat on the floor or just all kind of weird stuff. So you have to try to do your best to kind of protect them or whatnot. But I just like the game's atmosphere. You know, I haven't ran into anything that's super scary yet, but just the like the beginning parts and like later, a little bit later on, just the ambience or like how everything is set up. Like there's like the town is deserted, and it's just really creepy walking through the hallways and just going through the town. So if you see this game, or if you're able to play it, this is the PAL version of the game. I would say it's definitely worth picking up. But you guys let me know in the comments if you played this game or what you think of it. Next up, we have Hydrophobia. Now, this is Hydrophobia Legacy. This is the last version of the game. The first one was just Hydrophobia for 360. It was exclusive for a while. Then they wanted to fix some issues with that game, so it became Hydrophobia Pure. But the PS3 version is the definitive. So you play as a young engineer named Kate, and for some reason during the festival, she wants to go to work on her day off. Now, I just want to let you guys know that Hydrophobia is one of those games that was really pushed for the water effects. They just really did an outstanding job, Dark Energy, before they closed down, like just with the whole water effects with this game. Survival horror dealing with water. Well, I'll get into that a little bit later, but first, when you start the game, you end up in the elevator and an explosion happens, and pretty much this is where the game gets crazy, right in the beginning, like it should. But anyways, your first objective in this game is to try to get out of the elevator, alive, of course. And, you know, it's just weird with this game because it's like there's constant explosions happening. There's just all kind of stuff going on around you. And it's like it's just a real active environment, you know, stuff blowing up, you know, stuff being flooded, people running around. It gets really insane. And it was very impressive for the 360 and PS3, I thought, at least, because this game originally, I believe, came out back in 2010, 2011. And unfortunately, it's only a download. I always hoped that it would get put on a disc, but that didn't happen. And originally, also, this game was going to be a trilogy, but they weren't able to do that. So they kind of closed it up with this game. Now, with a lot of survival horror games, you're going to deal with a lot of locked doors. You know, something may look like it's open and you're going to get out, but yeah, you can forget that. You know, you're going to have to go find something, hack through something, and learn how to open certain doors or whatnot. So this game has really keeps things fresh. You know, you never really feel like you're going back and forth with this game. You're kind of like always feel like you're moving forward. And one thing with this game, environments that are around you don't expect them to be the same. There's always some kind of crazy explosion going on, changing things up, and it's just really hectic. And I really wish that we could have saw what Dark Energy was going to do with this series. I think they did an amazing job on this game, but unfortunately, you know, this game came out back in the day when like Kickstarters weren't really even out, and you know, they were able to produce the first game, but they didn't really make any money on it because nobody really knew about it, and it was only exclusive to the 360 for a little while before it came to the PS3. So I'm not really sure that helped. But a lot of companies, when they take that dive into making something different, you know, I guess they'll accept money for exclusivity or whatnot. But like I said, I just don't really think it helped, and I think it ultimately helped kill this game, because by the time it came out for PS3, it seemed like nobody just, I mean, not that people didn't care, they just didn't know about it, because it should, you know, certain games have a certain window to where it's good to release them, but like during that time, of course, it was like the Call of Duty era, so I mean, if you didn't have your game out at a certain time when it was safe, you could get lost in the shuffle pretty much. So right here where you can see the water rushing through, and you can see how it'll push you back. You'll be underwater. You kind of have to fight your way through it. It gets pretty crazy. And not only that, you'll be going against terrorists in this game. So trying to survive drowning and all that stuff, you know, you got to go through terrorists as well trying to survive. So if you see this game, if it's still available through download, definitely pick it up. But I remember it was only like $3. Here's Worse Than Death. So this is a 2D side-scrolling survival horror game, as you're seeing here, and it's about a girl who goes back to her town for a reunion. And as soon as you get to the reunion, things get crazy. You know, you find a dead body, and you are being stalked by a crazy-looking supernatural monster. Now, pretty much you can hide from the monster, but if you get caught, you know, it's pretty much game over. So, and you have a stamina meter in this game, so you got to be careful of running out of stamina. Make sure you hide properly and just stay out of that monster's way, because you run out of stamina, it doesn't. So just be careful playing this game. It's a lot of fun finding out the mystery of what's going on. And I think the game did a good job of kind of pulling people into the story. It definitely pulled me in. But let me know what you think about this one. I'm interested to know what people think about it, because I haven't heard anybody really talk about this one. Now, here's the Coma series. Now, mainly, I want to focus on the Coma Part 2. Now, if you haven't heard of these games, these are survival horror games where you pretty much play as students trying to find out, well, you're being stalked, I would say. And I'm mostly going to talk about the second one here, because I have most of the footage from the second game here. But basically, you end up in some kind of alternate dimension where you're being stalked by a demonic version of your teacher and another character. Now, what's crazy about this game is that you're being stalked in real time. So say you're in a room looking around for clues, you can actually hear footsteps outside. You have to hide just in case they come after you. So it's very trippy. It's always very active. You have to stay on your toes. This game has jump scares as well. It got me a couple times because, you know, I'm hard to scare, but this game got me at some critical moments. It was pretty insane. So I would definitely say this is a survival horror game that a lot of people would like to play. I don't want to go too much into the story, but it is very well done. And this collection is awesome because you get both games. So the first game, it didn't pull me in as much as this one did. The second game really, like, I played it all the way to the end. Got the best ending, thankfully, because the other ending is not good at all. But definitely something worthwhile if you like survival horror games, guys. Hopefully some of you guys have played this game already. But if you haven't, definitely try this one out. Next up, we have Forbidden Siren Part 2. Now, we got the first Siren for the PS2 in America. I guess it didn't really sell well. It was made by former team members of Team Silent, so you could really tell that they kind of brought their craft over to this game from the Silent Hill series. But I want to talk about Forbidden Siren 2 because I think that's the best game in the series. It only came out in PAL territories and in Japan. I don't want to go over the story too much because it's pretty confusing the way it's set up. You know, it takes place during different time periods and they kind of come together at the end. But one of the things I like about this game is that you're able to see through the eyes of your enemies, through sight jacking is what it's called. And you'll be using it a lot if you want to survive in this game. Usually the game consists of like short missions of you trying to get from point A to point B without detecting your enemies. And some of the levels you may have a character that has a gun, which is great. Sometimes you don't have a gun, so you want to kind of get by without alerting your enemies. There's two different types of enemies in this game. There's the darkness people, and then I think there's the dead zombie people. I forgot what the Japanese names for them were, but they're both pretty terrifying, and you don't want to run into either of them unless you got a firearm. Now, there's a total of 3 games in the series. The third game is actually a remake of the first game, so I just want to let everybody know that, but I consider the second game to be the best one, so definitely check this one out. Song of Horror, a throwback survival horror game. Now, when I say survival horror game, it's like, I want to kind of say it's a throwback of the old school survival horror games. Think of something like maybe Resident Evil Remake, and how those games, Dino Crisis as well, and how those games have the different camera angles dynamic. This game brings that back, which is fantastic, and it does it really well. Now, I don't want to go too much into the game because I don't want to ruin the story for a lot of you. I'm just going to talk about the first 2 characters you get to use. So the first character you get to use is Daniel in the prologue. He pretty much arrives home on a Friday evening ready to watch the X-Files, and he gets a phone call saying that someone's missing, and his friend wants him to go look for him. I forgot, it was like some professor guy. I totally forgot his name. Sorry about that. But anyways, guy goes missing, and they want you to investigate. Now, you know where this is going. You go into the house, and you look around. It's very creepy, and you find a crazy door that shouldn't even be there. You go in that door, and pretty much that's the end of the prologue. So the next character you play as is Daniel's ex-wife. Now, this is where you're going to see most of the gameplay I'm showing from. This is where the game kind of shows you what it's all about. Pretty much there is a mist, and the mist is stalking you in this house. You don't know it right away, but it's coming at you. And if it comes at you, you have a warning usually. Usually, like it tries to come through a door, and you have to hold the door shut. If you don't hold the door shut, that's it for you. Game over, and that character is dead for the rest of the game. So it changes the dynamic of the story pretty much. Now, the first thing I usually like to learn in a survival horror game is to control my character properly. In these type of games, when you're being stalked or chased, you want to know how to move your character around properly, make them run pretty much, you know. And that's the first thing I think you should learn in this game. Make sure you know how to control your character properly, because it sucks when you're being chased or stalked by something and you're just trotting along. You want to make that character run like their life depends on it pretty much. So make sure you learn the controls before you kind of get into the game. Now, this game is creepy. It actually tripped me out, and that's pretty hard to do. I've seen it all in survival horror games, and this game got me at a couple of moments. I don't want to tell you guys what they are, but something you probably know what they were in the game if you played this game, a good portion of this game. Now, the second character you get to play in this game is Sophie. Well, actually, she's the second character I chose because you could choose between like 3 or 4 other characters. I chose her because she's Daniel's wife, and that's a character we played as in the prologue, so I wanted to kind of continue his story. She's going to look for her husband, and her portion of the game is pretty scary because she goes into the house at night, and she's pretty much walking around with a candle, pretty much trying to keep things lit up, and it just really sets this eerie atmosphere. It'll really trip you out. But as I was playing with her, that's where I learned like most of the mechanics of the game pretty much. So holding doors, you can actually go up the doors and listen what's on the other side in case something feels wrong or whatnot, because sometimes if you just walk into a door, that shadow will be there, that mist I would say, and it'll take you, and that's it for that character. So you don't want that to happen. So be very careful playing this game. It's very crazy. There's 13 characters you could choose from, not right away, but pretty much during different periods of the game, which is pretty cool. 13 characters to try out, so keeps things interesting. If you are a survival horror fan, I think this game is a must-have, because the guys who created this game, you could tell they're fans of the old school survival horror games, so that's a big plus in my book.
Isaac, my dear friend, You don't know what you've done with that cursed music box.
What was that noise?
Is that music?
At the time you tried to warn me, we had all heard the music. I only hope you're all safe, and that you will find a way to forgive me.
Mr. Faber!
Good. Time to play detective.
Lately, I feel like something odd has gotten into Professor Hushel. He seemed anxious about something and...
I can't stop thinking about it. That song, it follows me everywhere. How long can I keep running away? Now, I find myself trapped in a tragic race against time.
What is this?
I lied, Isaac. I'm sorry. I still don't know what I'm up against. That melody. I'm not going to get it out of my head, am I?
So first game is going to be on the list is The Note. Now, The Note is a first-person survival horror game where a couple of friends are looking for some lost friends that went missing. I think, if I remember correctly, it was a couple weeks prior, and they decided to go look for him. The first stop, you end up in this village, and there's this big mansion you go into. Now, the game is played from a first-person viewpoint, and it's actually pretty cool because it kind of feels like a Resident Evil game, but just like in first-person view. When you take damage in the game, your vision becomes blurry, like your eyes will kind of shut a little bit. It seems like your vision will just kind of become hampered pretty much, and it becomes annoying. Through the doors in the mansion, you'll find like weird things like rats that can attack you, wolves, which is pretty trippy. And when you take damage, you want to just kind of like go back to your hotel and go to sleep. Now you get to choose how long you want to sleep for, but this could kind of take an effect when you meet people and you do missions for them or try to find out clues for them. You meet them back at certain times and everything like that. So it's a very inventive game, I think, and a lot of people don't know about it because it actually came out only in PAL territories in Japan. I think this game I don't know if it would have been a hit in America, but it definitely would have been one of those games that people would have remembered, I think, if you like the survival horror. So if you see The Note out in the wild, I would say definitely pick it up if you have a way to play PAL games. The game was also available in Japanese as well if you could read Japanese, but I think most of my audience probably wants to read it in English or hear it in English. So look for the PAL version of this game. Or if you already played it, let me know what you think of it. Here is Obscure. Now, hopefully a lot of you guys know about this game. Released as a budget title. It got popular over the years, and rightfully so. This is a fun survival horror game where it really focuses on co-op. You always have two people with you most of the time. Now, if you're not playing couch co-op, the AI takes over for the second player, but second player could drop in and out on combat at any time, so it makes it very convenient. Now, you play as 5 students trying to find out what's going on with missing students in their school, and they decide to stay after school to get together and find out what's going on. And things get crazy from that point on. So definitely a good mystery here, I would say, especially if you like survival horror type mysteries. You don't have to read a lot of notes that you find throughout the game to know what's going on, but if you do read the notes, it really helps flesh out a lot of the clues with the story. But anyways, definitely something I feel like a lot of people will want to play. This game, I wish it got the recognition it deserves, but unfortunately it kind of fell off because I believe during the time when it came out, survival horror was kind of like falling off, and this being released as a budget title kind of shows that in a way. And for those of you that like to have replay playthrough of games, this game does have multiple endings, so just want to put that out there. You might not get the best ending the first time because the game kind of tests you what you remember at a certain part in this game, and there's another part in the game where you could just fall to your death, which is pretty insane. So just remember to have those saves ready to go if you want the best ending, or if you just want to plow through it, you can do that too. Now, this game did get a sequel, but the sequel is more linear than this one, so it's still a good game, but it's just like a real straight path, I would say, with how you have to play the game. So just keep that in mind. But both are good games, but the first one definitely is the king, so make sure you start with that one.
Okay, let's go. Yeah, come on. Wait!
Here's Hell Knight for the PS1, a very obscure survival horror game that I know a lot of people probably don't even know about. So Hell Knight didn't really have a big release. It came out in Japan as I think Dark Messiah, and it only came out in certain parts of PAL territories, and it's very limited over there, so a lot of people don't really know about it. But this game pretty much it's pretty crazy how it starts off, because you start off in the subway pretty much going home, but ends up that there's a monster on the loose, and the monster is after you. So there's a crash on the subway and you're trying to escape, and you meet another character named Naomi. Now her ability is she's able to sense when the monster is around, so she's very handy when it comes to like if the monster is close to you, but at the same time she can't really fight against it. She can only warn you of its presence. Now my advice, when you first see this monster and you'll see him just kind of like crash down to the ground, they'll kind of put you in a cinematic mode to where you see him get up, but once you see him get up and you're able to move, don't wait around, get out of there. If you wait, he will charge right at you, and he might get you, so don't mess around. Get away from him, because you can't fight back. And the first thing, if you have somebody with you like Naomi, if you get caught by the monster, she'll be the first one to get killed. It'll kill her, then you won't have her ability to kind of help you out, so it makes the game harder. But you do meet other people that have certain abilities that are able to help you in the game. But I like Naomi because she kind of like clues you into where the monster is at, and she'll tell you if it's hiding around the corner, and just like it's just good to have her around. Now, like you saw in the earlier footage when I was running around, you run pretty fast, but you saw the screen flash red. That means you're tired, and of course when you're tired, you're not moving that fast, and that could like get you caught up with the monster actually finding you. So just be careful of that. Hell Knight has a lot of surprises for you, and I didn't want to show you one of the main surprises, but I will tell you that you end up finding an underground bunker city type area, and things from that point on in the game get pretty crazy. So you have a lot to look forward to in this game, so definitely check Hell Knight out. Next up, we have the Gregory Horror Show. Now, this is based off of a series that came on, I don't know if it came on in America or just Japan only, but I'm guessing it was pretty popular over there and decided to make a video game for it. Now, the video game only came out, it was originally supposed to come out to America, but only came out in PAL territories in Japan. And basically, you play as an unfortunate soul that enters Gregory's motel, and you can't get out. The only way to get out of this hotel is if you collect the souls of the inhabitants there, and it's tricky how to do that. Some people may just want a piece of candy, and they'll give you their soul for that. Others are just all kind of craziness. So some people will actually steal souls from you, and you have to chase them down. And you can only like meet certain people at certain times and everything. So you actually go to sleep, you meet death, and you actually give him the souls, and it shows you how many souls you need to actually leave the hotel. I've always said, like, this is a survival horror game, kind of like I would say aimed towards kids. If a kid's trying to get into a survival horror game, this would probably be the one. One of the things I really like about this game is the voice acting. The voice acting is pretty funny and pretty hilarious at times. The game doesn't look that great to me, of course. It looks pretty simple, but it's going for a simple look, which is totally fine. But the selling point for me in this game is actually the funny dialogue. It's pretty hilarious, and I'm guessing it just copied that from the show. So anyways, Gregory Horror Show, let me know what you guys think of this one. Alright, so we made it to my number one, Chaos Break. So this is the sequel, or semi-sequel, to Chaos Heat, which only came out in arcades. Now that game is pretty awesome as well. But this one is actually more of a survival horror game, where the arcade is more of like a run and gun shooter kind of in a way. Now at the beginning of the game, you get to play as two characters, Rick and Mizuki. For this playthrough, I go with Mitsuki. I think that's how you pronounce her name. But I just think she's the cooler of the characters, even though they're pretty much the same. But you're going to the laboratory to find out what's going on. And of course, we know it's not going to be anything good. So you're there to go rescue some people, but you find out much, much more. Now, even though I don't like to compare this game, it really feels like a mix of Dino Crisis and Resident Evil in a way. So that's how I would kind of sum this game up. But it's more arcade-like, because if you know what to do in this game, honestly, this game will only take you probably 2.5 hours to beat. But it's one of those old school survival horror games to where you can actually mess yourself up. Like if you use up too much ammunition, you'll be stuck. But unlike Resident Evil and Dino Crisis, you actually have a melee attack, which you may want to use as a last resort against certain enemies. I mean, you really pick the enemies that you're going to do melee combat with. If it's like a bigger enemy or a big monster, obviously you're not going to want to go like do any physical. I always felt it was a shame that a lot of people didn't know about this game. I actually found out about it only probably 4 years ago, and as soon as I found out about it, I bought it. I actually bought a sealed copy of it off eBay, and it just like it sucks because this game, I as far as I know, it wasn't released as a digital download. So the only way you're going to be able to get this game officially is if you buy a physical copy of it. But let me know if you guys know if it's on the PSN in Japan or in Europe. Now, being that this is a shorter game, because like I said, if you know what you're doing in this game, it'll probably take you like 2.5 hours to beat it. First time I would say maybe 4 to 5 hours, but the action starts fast and somebody gets killed and it's pretty gross, and you get your first glimpse as the first boss, so you already know what you have to look forward to later in the game. And this goat worm that you're seeing right here like surprises you at certain points, so I just want to let you guys know to be ready for that.
Run!
Alright guys, so that's going to do it for this video. Hopefully you found some obscure games that you never heard of on this list. If you have heard of these games, play them again for the first time. But yeah, I try to keep my list of games obscure. I feel like these games that nobody ever talks about, so I want to bring that to people's attention, hopefully. And hopefully you can enjoy some of these games. I know not all of them are perfect, but what survival horror game is, really? But anyways guys, I'm going to leave it there. Thank you for watching The Radical One, and I will see you all later.